So I just wrapped up filming this week's video, and the dish that I prepared this week didn't go too well. Welcome to week 2 of Pride in Cooking, where each week I am making a new dish for the first time on camera, inspired by one of the pride flags that describes me. This week we'll be making smoothies, inspired by the transgender flag. Smoothies make a fantastic summer treat. I make them and enjoy them all the time. This time, however, I'm going to try something a little bit new. I'm going to try making a homemade food dye. I'm on a journey to discover what goes into the food we eat, why it matters, and how we can use this knowledge to make our own cooking taste better. After being diagnosed with 17 food allergies, I'm determined to relearn how to cook, rethink how to eat, and reimagine what mealtime looks like. The transgender pride flag is made of 5 horizontal bars. The outermost 2 bars are a light blue, the next 2 are light pink, and the center bar is white. The blue and pink represent the colors that have come to be associated with each of the traditional binary genders, male and female. The stacking of blue and pink, and on the other side, pink and blue, represents the transitions from male to female, and vice versa. The white in the center represents non-binary, agender, and other people who fall outside of the traditional gender binary. Let's take a look at the photos that I found that serve as an inspiration for this week's dish. The photos that inspired this week's dish, just like last week's and next week's dishes, I've gathered together on my Pinterest page at Cooking With Them. They're on a board called Pride 2020 Dish Inspirations. I've gathered together a couple photos here that I like that kind of serve as an inspiration for this week's dish. First is this photo of layered smoothies. I really like this, and I think it's going to be a nice way to represent the different stripes on the flag, is by layering different colors of smoothie on top of each other. I think I'm going to blend together a couple of different smoothies and then layer them on top of each other in the final dish. What's cool about this one is the use of fresh fruit on top to add some neat little garnishes to the smoothie. I'm definitely going to take that. I also like how this dish has different fresh fruit and looks like some salt or sugar or something there arranged as a garnish on top of the smoothie and acai bowl presentation. In particular, I also like this light blue color that the smoothie has here. Now the light blue brings us to an interesting point. Reds, pinks, purples are actually pretty easy to get when you're making smoothies. There are plenty of fruits out there that are naturally these colors. Unfortunately, there aren't many options when it comes to blue, especially a lighter blue. My first thought, of course, was blueberries, but blueberries actually blend up to be kind of a dark bluish purple color, which isn't what we're looking for this flag. This is where making my own food coloring comes into play. I've done a little bit of digging, and the best option that I've found so far for making a light blue food coloring involves using red cabbage. And this pin here is a good idea for that. I found a couple different recipes for a cabbage-based light blue food coloring, so they're all very similar. I'm just gonna pick one to try, and we'll see how it goes. So with that, we're gonna start by preparing the red cabbage food dye. To make the food dye, we're gonna need some red cabbage. Now, I'm not personally a big fan of red cabbage, so I've never actually bought red cabbage before or really worked with it much. This is actually going to be my first time working with red cabbage, so we're going to see how this goes. So this recipe says to wash the cabbage and cut out the stem. I've already washed it. Now I'm going to need to cut out this stem, which I'm going to guess is this part right here. Not entirely sure how one cuts out the stem of a cabbage. The power of Google is fantastic. Well, that's interesting. Okay, so it says to start by cutting it in half. This is actually going through a lot easier than I expected. Oh, and now it got difficult. This is another case where having a cleaver would help. That's kind of pretty. Alright, now it says to cut a V shape to get rid of the stem. So that's going to be a V, kind of like that, and like that. Well, I kind of missed it, so yeah, this thing's just falling apart. There we go. We have a cabbage stem. Okay, now it says to cut a chunk like this. Probably gonna toss this outer layer. Now we're actually gonna be using this cabbage for its red color, and we're gonna extract that and ultimately get some blue out of it with a little bit of chemistry. So the first step is to extract the red color from the cabbage, and to do that we're gonna chop it into really fine pieces and actually steep it in water, much like you would tea. Now, one thing I do know about processes like this is the more surface area, the better, because it's going to allow the juices to be extracted more quickly. Drop in some pieces there. To increase the surface area with something like this, you're just going to chop it a little more finely. Okay, I'm pretty happy with the size of the cabbage now, so we're going to toss it in a pot of water. And then we're gonna boil it, again, steeping it just like tea. We now have a nice mixture here of cabbage water, and we're gonna put this on the steep. The recipe I found says to leave it steeping for at least 10 minutes. While that's steeping, we'll talk about the main ingredient of our smoothie, the fruit. When it comes to smoothies, I almost always use fresh fruit. Strawberries are one of my favorite ingredients for any smoothie that I'm making, and preparing them and freezing them myself is actually a really simple process. I'll show you how I do that. Fresh strawberries are really cheap, easy to find during the springtime, and when frozen can last for months. To prepare them to be frozen, I just take the strawberry whole as it is, and then I simply cut off the top green part, just like this. And now the strawberry can be frozen exactly as it is. It doesn't need any more preparation. Just toss them in a bag and put them in the freezer. I love buying fresh strawberries when they're on sale, and I will frequently buy them in bulk. Actually, probably see behind me right there about 12 pounds of strawberries that I just picked up for less than $1 a pound. I will freeze them all myself and use them for smoothies over the next couple of months. Now I have some bananas here, and bananas form the basis of most of the smoothies that I make. It actually serves as a little bit of flavor and also as a thickener, so it'll give that smoothie that nice, thick, creamy texture. One note about the bananas is, as you can see, these bananas are a little bit more on the ripe side. A riper banana will contribute more banana flavor, but also will not contribute as much thickening. So our cabbage is finished boiling, and let's take a look at what we got. Got kind of a cool purplish colored liquid there. And when I place it into this bowl, I'm going to use a strainer to separate the cabbage from the water itself. We just want the water. That's pretty cool. The dark purple color, what we're going for. This is our first step to making a light blue food dye. Now, to change the color of this from a dark purpley red to a light blue, we're going to actually have to mess with the pH. So cabbage juice is dark red in a low pH, or an acidic environment, and it turns into a nice light blue color in an alkaline environment with a high pH. So to raise the pH of this solution, we're going to use some baking soda. Now, fair warning about baking soda, it has its own flavor, and most people would not describe the flavor as very good. You want to be careful with how much you add, and be careful not to add too much. In this case, I'm just going to add just enough to get the color to change, which means I'm going to add it in small increments at a time. I'm going to go with half of a teaspoon. That was really fast. I've only added 1/2 teaspoon so far of baking soda, and you can see already it is changing to a nice blue color. And add a little bit more to see if we can get that lighter, but I don't want to overdo it for that flavor concern. Alright, I'm pretty happy with the result of this, so I'm going to give it a little bit of a chance to cool while we work on the rest of the smoothie. It's not quite the light blue color that I'm looking for, but we're actually going to use another trick in order to get the color a little bit lighter, and that is concentration. Let's go ahead and make the smoothie itself. We're going to go ahead and make the smoothie now. I only have one blender, and I need to make 3 different colors, the pink, the light blue, and the white. So I'm going to have to kind of shuffle things around as I go. We're going to start with the white, just to make sure that we don't have any color residue contaminating it. I'm going to use some oat milk, as well as the bananas that I showed earlier. When I'm making smoothies, I don't usually measure things very precisely, I just kind of eyeball it. The oat milk provides a lot of the liquid and the creaminess to the smoothie. Now I usually only use a single banana when I'm making a smoothie, but this time I'm going to use 2, just because these are a little more ripe and because I would like to get maybe a little more structure out of them. My hope is that it'll help prevent the layers from mixing too much. Don't think that's sealed on quite right. Gonna clean that up. I am glad these are way less valuable than they were a few weeks ago. We're gonna pour this into a bowl, that way I can reuse this and save it for later. Now for the red, we're gonna start the exact same way with some bananas and oat milk. Another tip when making smoothies is to blend your bananas and milk together first before adding in any frozen fruit or any ice. That will actually give the blades more of resistance to push against when they're spinning and will actually help your blender cut up the ice or frozen fruit a lot better. And for the red, in goes our previously frozen strawberries. You can see that turned a nice reddish pink right away. And again, we're going to rinse out the mixer just that way you don't get any color cross-contamination. And now for the blue, starting the same way as before. Probably should have gone with some less ripe bananas. And now to test out this food dye. Let's see what we got. Still got that nice blue color. Ooh, I probably shouldn't be splashing it everywhere. Again, just gonna add a little bit. Not seeing much color change. Starting to see a little bit of color change, but not exactly what I'm expecting. We're not getting a very light blue. That does not smell appetizing at all. So after doing a little bit of reflection, I have figured out what the issue is here. I mentioned earlier that the color of the juice actually depends on the pH of the solution that you're putting it in. Well, this has a lot of oat milk in it, and oat milk actually has a very low pH, it's fairly acidic. So what that means is the oat milk is actually going to counteract the effect of adding the baking soda earlier, which is turning our attempt at blue to be more of kind of a purpley color. Now, I would like to continue adding more to make this effectively blue, which probably would work. However, I definitely would not want to drink this because this is kind of gross. So I'm gonna have to rethink the blue part of this dish just a little bit. So I had a bit of an idea. I need something that is kind of neutral and take on the blue coloring, and what I'm thinking is something I was actually gonna use originally for the garnish. I have here some oats. So I think I'm gonna take the oats and attempt to dye them blue using this dye, strain out as much of the extra blue liquid as we can get rid of, and see if they retain kind of that blue color and will work as our blue layer. This is my attempt at dyeing oats blue. I might get a smaller scooper for this. And then I'm going to dip them in our blue liquid. The oats are definitely turning blue. Let's get a closer look at this here for you. Well, I don't want to do this to the oats too much because they're just going to go soggy and take on too much of this flavor, so we're going to have to settle with somewhat blue oats. Let's go ahead and assemble our smoothies. So to assemble these smoothies, I have 2 neat little glasses right here. All right, so first up is our blue layer. We have our blue dyed oats for this. I'm just gonna add a little bit of them to the bottom. This is just kind of like an oatmeal almost. Okay, so we now have a nice smooth layer of blue on the bottom. Let's go ahead and add our red. Okay, next our white. I'm actually going to go against adding another blue layer on top simply because I don't think that the oats would work very well. Also, the white and pink appear to have not mixed fantastically. Let's take a look at this. A little bit of white on top, but there's nothing really separating them. And I think the issue there is the smoothie is just not thick enough. So if I was to try this again, I would definitely make the smoothie a lot thicker. Now for the garnish on top, we're going to take a strawberry and we're actually going to slice it up and then fan it out to look kind of cool. Cut the top off, place it down, and then make a couple of thin slices. And now we just finish by pushing the layers sideways just like that. It makes a cool little fan. That did not work at all. For this one, I'm just gonna keep it whole. And on top, we're gonna sprinkle some oats. And there we have it, our completed dish. So to think a little bit about the results, I would say that this was a mixed success. I got the gist of what I was going after. There is some blue, some red, and some white in there. I wasn't really able to add additional layers on top to get the full flag. I think the biggest problem with this is the layers are not thick enough. So if I was to do this again, I would go ahead and make the smoothies a lot thicker. We're talking like get a spoon out ice cream type thickness. I'm also gonna have to keep shopping around for a different option for the blue food dye. Now this dye actually works pretty well. However, the hit to the flavor for something like a fruit smoothie isn't really acceptable. So I'll have to keep looking and see if I can find any alternatives. If you know of any or can think of any that I should try out, go ahead and leave a comment down below and let me know. So with that, we have our completed dish, our smoothies inspired by the trans pride flag. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that like button and make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss part 3. Next week, I'll be making a cake for the non-binary flag. If you have any other ideas for how you might improve this dish if I were to try it again, go ahead and leave those comments below. And remember, take pride in cooking. See you next time. So I just wrapped up filming this week's video and I had a couple of thoughts that I wanted to add. The dish that I prepared this week didn't go too well, definitely not what I had in mind. And I want to talk a little bit about that and what it means for cooking and pride in cooking. I think there's this outdated notion of pride as something that you have to be flawless with, something that you have to have everything taken into perfection. This dish that I produced this week certainly isn't something I would be proud of to present as a dish. It didn't taste very good and certainly didn't look nearly as good as I wanted it to. But I think it's important to show that there is an entire side to doing something like cooking that most people don't get to see. Whenever you look at my Instagram feed or any of my other social media, I have a curated collection of photos. You get to see the best of the best, things that worked that turned out really well. What you don't get to see are all the other mishaps, the misadventures, the things that went wrong along the way to get me the skills that I have to produce the amazing dishes that I can. I know that I can produce amazing dishes, I know that I can do better than this, and because of that, this doesn't bother me too much. In this case, pride means to me not putting out a perfect dish, but pride in the fact that I tried, that I was exploring. Things like cooking are just as much art as they are science. And this act of exploring, of being creative is very important. So I take pride in the fact that I decided to explore, try something new, and put what happens out there. I hope that all of you will take some pride in your cooking, even when things don't go exactly as planned. Remember that exploring and the missteps along the way are how you develop any skill and how you become a better chef. So, thank you for watching and sticking with me on this journey. If you enjoyed this message, go ahead and stick around. You'll really enjoy what I have to say in the conclusion of the series 2 weeks from now. See you next time. Welcome to week 2 of Pride in Cooking, where each week I'm making a brand new dish inspired by some photos I found on the internet. That sounds so